Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Foundry VTT from the ground up. And I'm thinking about doing something a little bit different. I mean, as I've been looking at my videos on both this and Fantasy Grounds, um, a lot of it is just simple repeat of everything I've already talked about in other videos. I mean, yeah, there might be new stuff here and there, but I really wanted to maybe do something that I didn't think was out there very much and that would be unique and very helpful for lots of people, especially those that are looking to maybe write their own macros and stuff like that. So, what I want to do is maybe start a new Foundry series, and what I'm thinking of calling it is Learning JavaScript using Foundry VTT. Now, to be honest, it's not going to feel like we're using Foundry for a long time in this new series, aside from that we're just doing it in the form of we're writing a macro in Foundry, because there's a whole lot of JavaScript to understand to really get to the guts of, say, a Foundry, an what am I thinking? An array, object, map, or something sets, all these different things that we might use in Foundry. So ultimately, yes, it will actually be learning things in JavaScript with Foundry VTT. However, at the very beginning, it's going to feel like, and definitely will not be the most efficient way of writing JavaScript, because using Visual Studio Code would be much more efficient. But as we use examples, I want to use things from Foundry to give you a real actual feel for how Foundry does it. So I'd like to know your guys' input. Um, for this, I'm going to unpause. There we go. I'm going to unpause it because that's annoying to have spinning there. So for this, basically, I've created a table here, a new world that I'm calling Learn JavaScript. And out of all my billions of modules, 455 modules, I only am going to have 7 modules that I can think of that are active right now. And I want, if you want to follow along, these would be the modules you'll want. You'll see here, I'm going to try and usually start with this screen up so you can see the version of Foundry, the build, and the D&D 5th edition version as well. However, really, the version of the system is pretty much 100% irrelevant, um, until we do things, writing modules and stuff, or yeah, modules, or not modules, macros that are specific to a system, using advantage, disadvantage, or something along those lines. So, just to give you a quick rundown of these, we have the ACE library, which is actually a requirement of the macro editor. So in order to have macro editor, we need the ACE library. What this does is gives us some very simplistic um, uh, code highlighting, code auto completing. Not a lot. Don't Like I said, if we did this in Visual Studio Code, it would be probably a lot better. But if you're writing macros, you're probably going to do it in Foundry, and I think it's just good to do it there. Then of course I have my D&D Beyond character sheet. Actually, that's not the one I wanted. Let's go ahead and undo that one. We want the D&D Beyond Importer, I think it's called. Manage modules. Let's go look. IMPOR. This one, the D&D Beyond Importer. And that one, I believe, there we go, now it's there. So there's our 7. So the D&D Beyond importer, which actually requires this guy as well. So that's why those two are there. Shared compendiums, in a past video I showed you how to create a module called shared compendiums where you can share compendiums between worlds. You just have one local repository of all your compendiums and you just have to link to that. But I have that because I have some examples of macros and stuff like that in there. We have sidebar macro, which gives us this little guy right here, which kind of makes it nice because, you know, normally you only have right here that gives you your 10 macros, and then you can go down and, you know, you could have 50 macros, but you have to remember where they all are. If you click on this, you actually have more of a compendium type style way of looking at your macros, having folders and everything like that. Plus, this also, if you go into the settings, will give the ability of just clicking this folder and it will take you there. And then the final one is Tidy UI, which is a very nice one that kind of gives us this little stuff up here. But more importantly, it makes it so our settings is a little nicer as well. If we come into module settings, it makes them so they're all collapsible. So if you have a lot, you can, you know, find the one you want. For example, sidebar macro, maybe we want to hide the button bar here and only use that. Well, that's what we click there. If we click the icon in the sidebar when we're here and there's a macro, we can click that and it'll execute it. And then this is just saying hide this little button basically from the screen. So you can come in here. There are a lot of different things. Ace Library is definitely going to be the one that the macro editor uses the most to get, you know, what type of font I'm using, the print margin columns, blah, blah, blah. Font family being monospaced, the theme. I've always liked Dracula, but there's lots of themes if you like different types of highlighting. New line mode, is it Unix or Windows? I usually don't play too much with that. Tab size, when you hit tab, does it go 4 spaces or is it just 2? I like 2 usually. So you can come in here and look at these different things and get it set up how you want. So in this episode right here, since this is going to be a short one, what I want to do is kind of give you the very basics of getting our environment set up for creating macros. And you have the option, you can either click down on number 1 or any of these open spots and it'll automatically create a macro, or you can come in here, click, say create macro. You can create folders if you want to kind of keep them organized in this lessons. You know, if we kind of say if we're talking about variables, you know, or data types, something like that, you can actually create a folder here called data types and then have various macros demoing the data types that we're doing. That's just an example, not necessarily what we're going to be doing. So anyway, we can go ahead and get started. So the very first thing to get our environment set up using Foundry for creating macros, after we've clicked save and it restarts our window, refreshes it, is we can, like I said, come down here, we can click on number 1, it'll create one, or we can come up here and say create a macro. And we're just going to call this, what should I call it? Maybe template, T-M-P-L-A-T-E. We're going to call it template macro. In here you choose whether it's a script or whether it is a chat. If it's a chat, when you click it, it'll just simply send it to chat. Once you've done that, you click create macro. Now the difference between doing the create macro here and just clicking here is we got that little pop-up here when we click create macro. When we do this create macro, basically we just get this window and its default setting is to be chat. So we would want to, you know, change that. Now, what our module we did, the macro editor, did, I'm not sure what that one is, tell you the truth, But it basically gives us this guy down here, which is the code editor. This is the macro editor window. As you can see, it's in Dracula mode. You know, it has a dark background and stuff. If I want to go back to the code editor that Foundry comes with, which is, oh, I can't remember the default one. They're actually changing it in the next version, which is nice. It's going to have a lot more nice stuff. But if we click on that, you can see we go back to this one that really has no highlighting or anything like that. So you can switch back to that if you need. This is our name. We can choose an icon for it. Really, that's kind of outside the scope, but if you just click on that, we can, I don't know, let's just do asset SVG for now. If we want to see what that kind of looks like, you know, these are all the white ones. If we want colored ones, we can actually back out a little further and go to, is that in here we can find all kinds of others. So let's do maybe magic and acid or air, you know. So you can set whatever kind of thing you want. Let's maybe do this for our template. Come down to the bottom, select file, and there you go. Now we have this cool little thing. If you have created a macro and you do want it in the hotbar, all you have to do is drag it from here down to there, and you're good to go. The difference is if we come down here and remove a macro, it simply removes it from the hotbar. If we do delete macro, it will actually delete it completely. So if we click here, you see we have the new macro. Let's go and grab that one once again. We'll just kind of do the same thing. What was that under? Magic, acid, skull. Scroll down since I have my resolution low, and change it to a script. And there you go. So if we just click remove macro, it just simply removes it from the hotbar, but it leaves the macro intact. Some options you have with your macro, depending on if you're game master and stuff, it might be different. But if you right click, you have the option to execute. You can duplicate it here. You can configure permissions. Who has permissions to run this macro? Right now, I just have on all players because I haven't created any in this world. We can export the data and we can import data in. So once again, let's just go ahead and drag that back here again. Now if we click it, it's actually executing. This is once again where it's going to seem like, why are we even using Foundry for this? And basically it's to get past the basics. Once we're past the basics, then we might actually be seeing Foundry core being actually used more. So the next thing I want to talk about really quick is with our macro. We're going to right click this and just say edit, and there's our macro. We'll go ahead and call it template, template, and if we hit save, you'll see it changes. So if I click the macro here, it just opens the macro. And if I click this, it actually executes it. That was that execute in the thing. For the first part and a huge chunk of this tutorial series, we're actually going to be using the log in order to see. Now, for those you don't know, Foundry actually is using kind of Chrome as its engine. So if you hit the F12 key to get into the developer tools, you'll actually see that we get this nice little window here. You might have it in a different spot or something. If you want to have it where I have it, you know, we can have it on the left, we can have it on the right. You can just click on these little three dots and choose where you want it. So we can have it be a pop-up window that's completely all by itself. We can have it on the side where it is right now. We can have it at the bottom, and we can have it on the right side. And there's a couple other options. Really all we care about right now is that we have this window, and if you see more options here, for example, we move this over and you have all these different options. If you're not in console, you want to be in console. And that is pretty much the first part that we need. All right, so let's go ahead, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clear our console because it has lots of stuff from Foundry refreshing and loading. We get all these different things. So if we click on the little not sign here, it'll clear it out, and now we can see what we want to see. So if I click on my new little macro, it doesn't do anything. So let's go ahead and look at it and maybe edit it just a little bit so that it will do something. Just something very basic for this first video. So one thing I like to do with my JavaScript, and to be honest, I have not used JavaScript. I've just picked it up probably about a year ago, more or less, and have been catching up. I used JavaScript quite a bit when it first came out, early on in my career and stuff, and then kind of moved to PHP and C++ and C# and all these other languages, and JavaScript. Even Java I was learning and did, and JavaScript kind of fell behind the scenes. So I've had to do a lot of learning myself here. So what we're going to be seeing, in this video, some of it we might be learning together. And I wanted to check one thing real quick. A window's gonna pop up here. I'm just gonna move it real quick. And so one of the first things I like to do in all my different scripts is kind of at the very top, I like to make it so that we are forcing JavaScript, because JavaScript is actually really, really relaxed as far as syntax and stuff, and that makes it more prone to different types of errors. And so one thing I like to do at the very top is type in the following. So inside of quotations, you type use strict. So use strict. And this will actually force Java to not be as lenient as it can be. There's a lot of things about JavaScript. So this is one thing I like to do. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I would recommend it because it could help stop vulnerabilities and also, things you don't want, unexpected behaviors. So this is a thing that just tells Java, hey, be strict. Make sure that my syntax is better. So one thing about the macro editor here is you'll actually see here it's saying missing semicolon. JavaScript, I'm going to say Java a lot because I also have a whole series that I'm going to be uploading from my Taz Teaches channel to this channel, which is Taz Teaches Java. So if I say Java, I mean JavaScript here. So this is just giving you an informational. It's not going to cause an error, but it's a good practice to put a little thing there. And this is also going to give you a warning saying, yeah, you can't really use this, but you actually can. This is just the macro error editor that won't do that. If we go and run this, you'll actually see we don't get any kind of errors at all, right? We just get Foundry's rendering. So this is the first thing I like to have at the top of any macros I write. The second thing I like to do is JavaScript has what's called scope. Lots of programming languages have scope, which means if I declare variables, if someone else has declared variables outside of my script or my macro, I don't want a conflict between those variables and stuff. And if you don't know what variables are, we're going to get into that. This is just to explain our basic template. So by creating our own little container, we actually are isolating. So let's say someone has max health somewhere else. They're using it in their module or something like that, but they don't have it locked down where if someone else tried using that same thing, it would work. So I don't want to override that. I don't want them to override me. So that's why I kind of create my own thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a function. And a function is basically something that runs when it's called. It's a chunk of code. So we're going to call it, and it's called main. That's usually what people call it, with a semicolon. So this is going to call a function called main. And as you can see right now, it's saying, well, main isn't defined. So we're going to come down here, and now we're going to define it and say function function to tell it it is a function. And we're going to say main, parentheses, and then we're going to do open curly brace. And then I hit enter, and it automatically creates the closed curly brace for us. So now, when we click our button here, it's going to execute this function, which is simply going to come in here. It's going to go here and say, okay, this is the function. It's going to come inside, see there's nothing. It's going to leave the function, and it's going to be done. So basically, we see absolutely nothing. If I click that or click this, we don't see any changes. And that's to be expected. However, what we've done is isolated our little thing into its own container. Until we actually get into functions to describe them and stuff, we're just going to call it a container or a chunk of code. So we're going to learn really quick our very first chunk of code. So we're going to do something that actually writes out to our console here. So we're going to do console. So this is going to invoke the console. I'm trying not to get too deep into this because I could definitely go into more. Then I'm going to use the period, and I'm going to type log. So this is going to go to the console log, which is this thing that's the console and the log. And inside of it, we're going to tell it what we want it to say. And let's just say something, I work. How's that sound? So now, if we save this and we run it, we now get in the console, I work. I work. And if we keep clicking it, because we're clicking it quickly and it was the same as the last one, we get this little thing showing that the last 5 have been the same. I'm not typing it because that's pointless. So there we go. Anything we put inside these quotes, and they can be double quotes, they could be single quotes, it doesn't matter. If I did a second one, and here's a good example of, see, it says missing semicolon here, but it's working fine here. It's not complaining at all. This is where it's a good practice to have those semicolons at the end of a statement. So if we do another one, console.log, we can actually use double quotes, and it works the same. So if you have something like a word with a single quote in it, you might want to encapsulate the whole thing with double quotes. If I wanted to say I work like this, you know, I work, I don't know, something like that, then I want single quotes on the outside. So everything within those outer quotes will be output to the console. And we could say, so do I, and semicolon. So if we want to hit save, but now if we hit save and run it, now we got I work and so do I. So this is just a very base primer of getting the environment set up, getting under the hood of Foundry. Like I said, I've really toiled with whether I actually do this in Foundry or Visual Studio Code, but because ultimately we're going to be doing everything in Foundry and it's going to be macros, and we're going to use the data structures of characters and stuff like that, when we get to that stage, then yes, it will actually be very beneficial to be in Foundry. Right now, it's going to be kind of plugging along. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little episode. Hopefully you like the idea of what I'm trying to do. If you do, be sure to, click the thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Tell other people about my channel. Check it out. If they like what they see, you can sub. Check out my Discord and my other channels in the video description. And that is it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.